I've always been the type who steers clear of office drama, until I became the victim of a termination prank in the middle of a crowded office, on my birthday. They thought I'd laugh. I didn't. And just one message later, their manager apologized to me 32 times. Each apology, another nail in their career coffin. They wanted a viral moment. They got one. Just not the kind they expected. My name is Rachel Monroe. And at 29, I'd built my entire identity around being the person who fixes things quietly. Senior HR specialist at Blue Nova Systems in Cleveland. Not the most glamorous title, but it meant something to me. It meant I was the one executives trusted when delicate situations needed handling. The one who stayed late sorting through compliance issues so others could sleep soundly. I wasn't the type to join happy hour gossip sessions or participate in the constant stream of TikTok challenges that the younger marketing team obsessed over. I kept my head down, delivered results, and went home to my one-bedroom apartment where the only drama involved my cat, Fitzgerald, knocking plants off the windowsill. 6 months earlier, I'd ended a 3-year relationship with someone who told me I was married to my job and emotionally unavailable. Maybe he was right. But after watching my mother lose everything in a brutal divorce when I was 15, I'd learned that the only thing you could truly depend on was your own competence. Love was negotiable. A steady paycheck and professional reputation? Those were real. Blue Nova wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd been there 4 years, climbing from junior recruiter to my current role. My annual reviews were spotless. Just last quarter, I'd single-handedly prevented a discrimination lawsuit that could have cost us millions. The executives knew my worth. Even if the 20-somethings in marketing saw me as just another corporate drone who didn't appreciate their creative genius. The morning of March 15th started like any other. I arrived at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes before official hours, coffee in hand, reviewing the day's agenda. 3 termination meetings, a benefits orientation, and a conference call with legal about updating our remote work policies. I'd completely forgotten it was my birthday until my mother texted at 8:23 a.m. Happy 29th, sweetheart, Dad would have been proud. I stared at that text longer than necessary. Dad had been gone 7 years now, sudden heart attack at his desk at the accounting firm where he'd worked for 2 decades. Another reminder that dedication to your job didn't guarantee anything, yet here I was, following his footsteps anyway. The marketing team was particularly loud that morning. Landon Price, their unofficial ringleader at 26, was showing off some new video editing technique on his phone. A cluster of his followers, Megan, Josh, and Kayla, huddled around him, erupting in periodic laughter. I caught fragments of their conversation. Viral potential. Engagement metrics. Authenticity in corporate content. I didn't dislike them, exactly. They were young, eager, full of ideas that occasionally bordered on brilliant. But they operated in a different universe from mine, one where work was content, and professionalism was just another word for boring. They'd never understand that my boring attention to detail had saved their department from a 40% budget cut just 2 months ago. I'd fought that battle in closed-door meetings they'd never know about. By noon, I'd successfully terminated 2 employees, both for legitimate performance issues, handled with as much dignity as I could provide. I was preparing for the 3rd when my computer chimed with an internal email notification from HR no reply, Blue Nova Systems. Com. Subject: Immediate action required, employment status update. Priority: high. My stomach clenched. I knew every legitimate email address in our system. This wasn't one of them. But the formatting was perfect, the logo precisely placed. Someone had put effort into this. As I clicked open the email, I became aware of a strange energy in the office. The usual keyboard clatter had diminished. In my peripheral vision, I caught the subtle glow of phone screens being raised. They were recording. The email was brief, clinical in its cruelty. Dear Ms. Monroe, effective immediately. Your employment with Blue Nova Systems has been terminated due to violations of our Code of Professional Conduct. specifically regarding interpersonal workplace dynamics and failure to maintain collaborative team standards. Please collect your personal belongings and surrender your access credentials to security within the next hour. Your final paycheck will be mailed to your address on file. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Human Resources Department, Blue Nova Systems. The words blurred. My hands, steady through every difficult conversation I'd ever facilitated, began to shake. Interpersonal workplace dynamics, failure to maintain collaborative standards. The corporate speak was perfect, exactly the kind of vague, legally careful language I might have written myself. Behind me, someone giggled. The sound was quickly stifled, but it was enough. I understood. This was their idea of humor, their content, their viral moment, and I was the punchline. The giggle spread like wildfire. First one, then another, until the entire marketing corner erupted in barely contained laughter. I turned slowly, my body moving independently of my racing thoughts, and saw exactly what I expected. A sea of phones pointed in my direction, their black lenses capturing every micro-expression on my face. Landon stood at the center, his phone held high, that practiced influencer smile plastered across his face. "Happy birthday, Rachel," he shouted, arms spread wide like a game show host revealing the grand prize. "You just got pranked." The word hung in the air like a slap. Pranked? On my birthday. With a fake termination letter. "Come on, don't look so serious," Megan chimed in, her purple-streaked hair bouncing as she laughed. "It's just a joke. We do this all the time on TikTok. You should see your face." Josh was already hunched over his laptop, probably editing the footage in real time. "This is going to break the internet," he muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. Corporate culture meets Gen Z humor. It's genius. I stood there, frozen, watching them celebrate their cleverness. Kayla was already typing captions. When HR becomes the HR incident, office prank, corporate comedy, viral. No one noticed that I wasn't laughing. Or maybe they did notice and simply didn't care. After all, the content was what mattered. The views, the likes, the shares. I was just a prop in their performance. The email was Josh's idea, Landon explained, still recording. He spoofed the whole system, took him like 3 hours to get the formatting perfect. Even used your own HR language. Method acting, right? Method acting. They'd studied how I wrote, how I communicated, and weaponized it against me. The violation felt deeper than just a prank. They'd invaded my professional identity and twisted it into a joke. "You can laugh now," Megan said, her smile faltering slightly at my continued silence. "It's funny, right? Like, you fire people all the time, so we thought..." "You thought what?" My voice came out steady, which surprised me. Inside, I was screaming. The laughter stuttered to a stop. Landon lowered his phone slightly. "We thought it would be funny. You know, ironic. The HR lady gets fired. Classic misdirection. On my birthday." "We didn't." Kayla started, then stopped. "Wait, it's your birthday?" Of course they didn't know. Why would they? I wasn't someone whose personal life mattered to them. I was a function, not a person. The HR lady, the one who ruins their fun with policies and procedures. The corporate drone who didn't understand their creative vision. "Look, Rachel," Landon said, his tone shifting to something resembling concern. "It's just content. Everyone does pranks now. It's like team building. You're supposed to laugh, and then we all bond over it." Bond? Over public humiliation? Over the weaponization of my deepest professional fear? Over the trauma of watching my mother lose her job without warning, coming home to find her sobbing at the kitchen table with a banker's box of her belongings? "Is this still recording?" I asked quietly. "Well, yeah," Josh said. "We need the reaction shot. That's the whole point." The whole point. I was the whole point. My humiliation, packaged and edited for mass consumption. I picked up my coffee mug, the one Dad had given me when I got my first HR job, with World's most dedicated daughter, printed in fading letters. I took a sip, letting the bitter liquid ground me in reality. Then I set it down carefully, deliberately. Interesting, I said, and began gathering my things. Wait, you're not actually leaving, are you? Megan asked, genuine confusion in her voice. It was just a joke. I slipped my laptop into my bag, collected my planner, my stress ball shaped like a brain, the small cactus that had survived 3 office moves. Every movement was precise, controlled. Let them record this. Let them see what dignity looked like. Rachel, come on, Landon said, his influencer persona cracking. Don't be so sensitive. It's just how we show affection. Like hazing. But funny. Hazing. He said it so casually. As if workplace harassment was just another content category. As if the fact that I'd saved their department from budget cuts, stayed late to fix their compliance errors, and advocated for their creative freedom meant I deserved to be hazed into their club. I pulled on my coat, watching their faces shift from amusement to uncertainty. They'd expected tears or anger or laughter. They hadn't expected silence. Seriously, you can't take a joke, Josh pressed, his laptop still open, probably salvaging what footage he could. This is why people think HR has no sense of humor. I looked at him, really looked at him. 24 years old, fresh out of college, convinced that the world existed to be content. He genuinely didn't understand what he'd done. None of them did. Make sure you get my exit in frame, I said, heading for the door. It'll make a better ending for your video. The last thing I heard before the elevator doors closed was Kayla's voice. Should we tell someone? And Landon's response, tell them what? That we pranked someone who can't take a joke? She'll be back tomorrow. They always come back. But I wouldn't. They turned me into content. Into a joke, into a viral moment. They just didn't know yet that they'd also turned me into something else entirely. I made it to my car before the tears came. Hot, angry tears that I'd held back through every unfair termination I'd witnessed. Every budget cut I'd delivered, every time someone had told me I was too serious or needed to lighten up. 29 years old, sitting in the parking garage of a company I'd given 4 years of my life to. Sobbing like the 15-year-old girl who'd found her mother surrounded by boxes and termination paperwork. The parallel wasn't lost on me. Mom had been a marketing director, creative, vibrant, beloved by her team. Until the day she wasn't. Until budget cuts and restructuring turned her from a person into a line item. She'd never seen it coming. Too busy being liked to notice she wasn't protected. I'd sworn I'd be different. I'd be essential, irreplaceable, professional. Look where that got me. My phone buzzed incessantly. I turned it off without looking. Let them wonder. Let them realize their content creator wasn't coming back to play along with their narrative. The drive home was autopilot. 23 minutes of muscle memory while my mind replayed every interaction from the past months. The signs had been there. The eye rolls when I enforced policy. The whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. The TikToks about corporate culture that felt a little too pointed. I'd dismissed it all. I was above petty office politics. I had real work to do. Real work. Like the time I'd spent an entire weekend rewriting the marketing department's job descriptions to justify higher salaries. Like the confidential meetings where I'd argued against outsourcing their roles. Like the night I'd stayed until 2 a.m. fixing Landon's tax withholding error before it became a legal issue. He'd thanked me with a Starbucks gift card and a joke about how I needed to get a life. My apartment felt smaller than usual. Fitzgerald meowed accusingly from his perch, annoyed by my unexpected midday arrival. I fed him mechanically, then stood at my kitchen window, still wearing my coat, staring at nothing. The birthday cards from my mother sat unopened on the counter. She still sent 2, one from her, one from Dad. 7 years of cards from a dead man, because she couldn't let go of traditions. Because sometimes the ritual was all that kept you sane. I understood that now. My laptop sat in my bag like a loaded weapon. I knew exactly what was on it. Emails. Documents. Proof of every battle I'd fought behind closed doors, including the ones from 2 months ago that I'd been CC'd on by accident, the ones discussing the marketing team's brand integration initiatives that violated at least 3 federal regulations. I'd fixed those violations quietly. Of course, no need to embarrass anyone, no need to make enemies. Except I'd made enemies anyway. Simply by existing. By being the boring HR lady who didn't understand their vision. The tears had stopped, replaced by something colder, clearer. I pulled out my laptop and opened my personal email. Then I navigated to a folder labeled CYA, Cover Your Ass. Every HR professional had one. Mine was meticulous. There it was. The email chain from January, where Landon had explicitly discussed using company resources to build his personal brand. The messages where Josh had bragged about hacking internal systems for practice. The documentation of every instance where I'd protected them from their own stupidity. And there, gleaming like a gift from the universe, the email thread where they'd discussed this exact prank. I'd been accidentally included when someone hit reply all on a different thread. I'd ignored it at the time, too busy with real problems to worry about their juvenile plans. Should we really fake fire someone? Kayla had written. Seems kind of mean. Landon's response, only if we pick someone with no sense of humor, like Rachel from HR. Can you imagine her face? Make sure you record everything, Josh had added. This could go mega viral. Corporate pranks are trending hard right now. Megan's contribution, OMG yes, and on her birthday would be iconic. Maximum emotional impact. Maximum engagement. They'd known it was my birthday. They'd chosen it specifically for maximum emotional impact. I sat at my kitchen table, Fitzgerald winding around my legs, and stared at the evidence. 4 years of professional dedication. 4 years of being the adult in the room. 4 years of protecting people who saw me as nothing more than engagement metrics. I could email it all to Kyle Beckett, our senior HR director. I could file a formal complaint. I could make a scene. Or I could do what I did best. Fix things quietly, efficiently, permanently. I opened a new email and typed in a single address. Tessa Glenwood, Vice President of Operations. The woman whose career I'd saved 6 months ago when a data breach nearly destroyed her department. The woman who'd told me, Rachel, if you ever need anything, you call me. I didn't need to call. I just needed to send one message. One perfectly crafted, professionally devastating message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. In my mind, I could hear my father's voice. Never make decisions when you're emotional, sweetheart. Wait until the anger passes. But the anger wasn't passing. It was crystallizing into something else. Something that understood why Mom had kept all of Dad's things for a year after he died. Sometimes holding on to the pain was the only way to honor what had been taken from you. I began to type. Each word chosen with the same precision I'd used to protect the very people who'd turned me into a punchline. They wanted a viral moment. They were about to get one. Just not the kind they'd posted about. I stared at the blank email for 17 minutes, not composing, not deleting, just staring. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat, waiting for me to decide who I was going to be. The Rachel who fixed things quietly would write a measured complaint. She'd follow protocol. File the appropriate forms. Trust the system that had failed her mother, failed her father, and now failed her. But I wasn't that Rachel anymore. That Rachel had walked out of Blue Nova's building 2 hours ago and hadn't come back. My fingers found the keys. 2. Tessa. Glenwood, Blue Nova Systems. Com. From Rachel Monroe. Personal Agmail. Com. Subject. Regarding Blue Nova's new brand direction, Tessa. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to experience Blue Nova's innovative approach to employee engagement today. The marketing team's creative interpretation of termination procedures was certainly educational. I've attached a video file for your review. I believe it aligns perfectly with the authentic corporate culture initiative Josh presented at last quarter's board meeting. The metrics should be impressive. Nothing drives engagement quite like public humiliation of senior staff. If this is Blue Nova's new brand of leadership culture, I'd like that in writing before I respond to the offer from our competitors. The video file, 2.3 GBs, is best viewed with audio to fully appreciate the collaborative spirit. Best regards, Rachel Monroe. Former Senior HR Specialist P.S. Silicon Thorn Labs reached out last month. I hadn't responded out of loyalty. That was clearly a miscalculation on my part. I attached the video I'd screen recorded from my phone. Yes, I'd been recording too. Old habits from handling hostile terminations. Always document everything. The footage showed their faces clearly, captured every word, every laugh, every phone pointed at me like weapons. My finger hovered over send. Once this went out, there was no taking it back, no quiet fixing, no professional distance. This was corporate warfare. And I was firing the first shot. But hadn't they fired first? Hadn't they decided that my dignity was worth less than their content? I hit send at 8:03 p.m. Then I turned off my laptop, poured a glass of the wine I'd been saving for a celebration that would never come, and sat in the dark with Fitzgerald purring on my lap. The next morning arrived like any other, except I wasn't getting ready for work. I made coffee in Dad's old French press, the one Mom had tried to throw away but I'd rescued. Some things were worth saving, even when they reminded you of pain. My phone had been off since yesterday. I powered it on at 9:17 a.m., 47 missed calls, 132 text messages, 23 emails to my personal account. I scrolled through them with clinical detachment. Tessa Glenwood, 7:52 a.m. Rachel, please call me immediately. Kyle Beckett, 18:15 a.m. Rachel, we need to discuss this situation urgently. This is not how we handle conflicts at Blue Nova. Unknown number, 8:47 a.m. Rachel, this is Landon. Please, please, please call me back. This is insane. It was just a joke. The messages from Landon started professional and devolved quickly. 8:47 a.m. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. 8:52 a.m. I'm sorry you were upset, but this is an overreaction. 9:00 reason a.m. Do you know what you've done? They're talking about firing people. 9:03 a.m. Please, Rachel, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. 9:05 a.m. I have student loans. Please. 9:08 a.m. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I counted them. 32. Sorries in various forms across his messages, each one more desperate than the last, each one a nail in the coffin they'd built themselves. The emails from HR were more measured but equally frantic. Legal had been looped in. The board had questions. The video had been reviewed by executive leadership. Words like hostile work environment and harassment and liability peppered their carefully worded messages. But it was Tessa's final email that stopped me cold. Rachel, I've reviewed everything. The video, the January email chain you referenced, the pattern of behavior, effective immediately. The following actions have been taken. Landon Price, terminated. Josh Williams, terminated. Megan Chen, 30-day suspension pending investigation. Kayla Martinez, written warning and mandatory sensitivity training. This is not the Blue Nova culture I've spent 10 years building. I'm personally appalled and professionally embarrassed. Your position remains open if you choose to return. With a 15% raise and a formal apology from the board, if you choose not to return, I understand. Silicon Thorn would be lucky to have you. Also, Rachel, happy belated birthday. You deserved better. Tessa. I set down my phone and looked at Fitzgerald, who was batting at a dust mote in the morning sun. What do you think? I asked him. Did I go too far? He meowed and knocked my dad's coffee mug off the table. It shattered on the kitchen floor. World's most dedicated daughter, scattered in ceramic pieces. I stared at the mess for a long moment. Then I got the broom and quietly cleaned it up. Some things couldn't be fixed. Sometimes the breaking was the point. My phone rang. Silicon Thorn Labs. I'd sent them one email too, last night at 8:04 p.m. Just my resume and a single line. I'm ready to discuss that position now. They wanted a viral moment. They got one. It just wasn't the kind anyone could share. The Silicon Thorn Labs call could wait. I had 68 more messages to review, each one a small vindication wrapped in panic and desperation. Josh Williams, 9:23 a.m. This is insane. It was your job to take a joke. You know how much equipment I have on company lease? My whole setup is there. Followed immediately by his mother, 9:45 a.m. Ms. Monroe, I don't know what happened, but Josh is hysterical. He says he's been fired. He's only 24. Please reconsider. Only 24. As if age excused turning someone's worst professional fear into content. As if being young meant your cruelty didn't count. The marketing team group chat had been leaked to me by someone, probably Kayla, trying to get ahead of the disaster. Emergency meeting in 5. Has anyone heard from Landon? Legal is here. Don't say anything without a lawyer. Jesus Christ, we're so fucked. It was just supposed to be funny, just supposed to be funny. The refrain of every bully caught in the act. By 10 a.m., the calls had shifted. Recruiters who'd gotten wind of the situation, former colleagues checking in, 3 competitors offering interviews. The professional world was small, and news traveled fast when senior staff got terminated for cause. I finally answered Tessa's 4th call at 10:47 a.m. Rachel. Her voice was carefully controlled. Thank you for taking my call. Tessa, I need you to know that I've personally reviewed every piece of footage, both theirs and yours. I've also gone through the January emails and... A pause. Christ, Rachel. I had no idea it had gotten this bad. It was just office culture, I said, my voice flat. Team building, engagement metrics. Don't. Her tone sharpened. Don't minimize what they did. I've seen hazing. I've seen pranks. This wasn't that. This was targeted harassment designed for public humiliation. Targeted harassment. The words felt foreign applied to my situation. That was something that happened to other people. People who weren't careful. People who made enemies. The board wants to know if you're planning legal action, Tessa continued. Should I be? As your former colleague, I'd say you have grounds. As a representative of Blue Nova, I'm required to inform you that we're prepared to discuss a settlement that would include... Stop. I cut her off. I don't want your money. I wanted to do my job without being turned into a TikTok. Silence. Then, what do you want, Rachel? What did I want? My father back? My mother's career restored? The ability to trust colleagues again? I want the truth to be more powerful than the content, I said finally. It is. Landon's already had 3 brand partnerships dropped. Josh is being investigated for the system breach. Turns out hacking company emails, even for pranks, is a federal crime. And Megan. Another pause. Megan's fiancé saw the video. Apparently, he didn't find workplace bullying as amusing as she did. The information should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt hollow. Necessary, but hollow. Rachel, about the position. I've already accepted an offer from Silicon Thorn. I lied smoothly. I hadn't even called them back yet. But Tessa didn't need to know that. I see. Her disappointment was palpable. Can I ask you something off the record? Go ahead. How long were you planning this? The response, it was so... precise? I thought about the question. The truth was, I hadn't planned anything. I'd just done what I always did. Identified the problem, found the solution, executed efficiently. The only difference was this time, the problem was my own humiliation. I wasn't, I admitted. I just remembered something my father used to say. Never mistake kindness for weakness. The quiet ones always keep the best records. She laughed, short and sharp. Remind me never to prank your father. He's dead, I said. Heart attack at his desk 7 years ago. Worked himself to death for a company that replaced him in 3 weeks. The silence stretched longer this time. I'm sorry, Rachel, for all of it. Don't be sorry. Be better. I hung up before she could respond. The apartment felt different now, charged with possibility and consequence. Fitzgerald rubbed against my legs, unconcerned with human drama. I envied him. My laptop showed 3 emails from Silicon Thorn, each more eager than the last. A bidding war was starting, and I was the prize. The boring HR lady who'd brought down a viral marketing team with a single email. But first, I had one more message to review. It had come through while I was on with Tessa, from an address I didn't recognize. Ms. Monroe. My name is Sarah Walsh. I'm a junior analyst at Blue Nova. And I wanted to thank you. What happened to you almost happened to me 6 months ago. Same team, same prank. But I laughed along because I was scared. I've been documenting everything since then. If you need additional evidence for any legal proceedings, I have folders. You did what I was too afraid to do. Thank you for showing me that quiet doesn't mean weak. Also, Landon's crying in the parking lot. Security won't let him back in to get his streaming set up. Sarah. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Tessa with a single line. You have a bigger problem than you thought. My phone rang. Silicon Thorn. This time, I answered. Ms. Monroe, this is David Castellanos, CEO of Silicon Thorn Labs. I've just finished reviewing your materials, and I have to say, we're very impressed, both with your credentials and your first-year problem-solving methodology. Problem-solving methodology. Corporate speak for, we saw what you did to them, and we want you on our side. When can you start? 6 months later, I stood in the Palmer House Hilton in Chicago, adjusting the lanyard that marked me as Rachel Monroe, Director of People Operations, Silicon Thorn Labs. The technology conference buzzed with the familiar energy of forced networking and desperate innovation pitches. I'd been avoiding the Blue Nova booth all morning, not out of fear, but out of a complete lack of interest. That chapter was closed, sealed with a settlement I'd eventually accepted, not for the money, but for the ironclad NDA that prevented them from ever speaking about me publicly. My story wouldn't become their redemption arc. Silicon Thorn had been everything Blue Nova wasn't. Professional. Innovative without being cruel. They'd hired me not despite what happened, but because of how I'd handled it. We need someone who can protect our people while still letting them shine, David had said. Someone who knows the difference between creativity and cruelty. I was refilling my coffee when I saw him, Landon Price, standing by the startup showcase, wearing a blazer that didn't quite fit and a lanyard that read Independent Consultant. The swagger was gone. The influencer shine had dulled into something desperate and hollow. He saw me at the same moment. His face went through a series of expressions, recognition, panic, something that might have been hope, before settling on resignation. I could have walked away. Should have, probably. But I found myself moving toward him, my heels clicking on the convention center floor with the same steady rhythm I'd perfected over years of difficult conversations. Rachel. His voice was smaller than I remembered. I didn't expect to see you here. It's a tech conference, Landon. Where else would I be? He glanced at my lanyard, taking in the title, the company name. Silicon Thorn. Right. I heard you. I mean, congratulations? Thank you. The silence stretched between us, filled with the ambient noise of 1,000 other conversations. He shifted his weight, fidgeting with his own lanyard. I'm freelancing now, he offered, unprompted. Content strategy, brand consulting, it's going okay. I knew it wasn't. The tech world was smaller than people realized, and word traveled fast. Landon Price, the marketing wonder kid who'd turned workplace harassment into content, who'd been fired for cause from a major firm. His LinkedIn posts got fewer engagements each week. His TikTok account had been privated, then deleted entirely. That's good, I said neutrally. Rachel, He stopped, swallowed, started again. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not the kind of sorry you say when you're scared of consequences, but the kind where you realize you destroyed something that didn't need to be destroyed. I studied him. Gone was the camera-ready smile, the practiced charm. This was just a 26-year-old kid who'd learned too late that engagement metrics couldn't measure human damage. I got therapy, he continued. Started really thinking about why I thought hurting people was content, why I couldn't see you as a person instead of a prop. His voice cracked slightly. My therapist says I was raised by the internet instead of parents, that I learned to value virality over humanity. And now? He laughed, bitter and short. Now I can't get hired anywhere that does a background check. My mom had to co-sign my apartment lease. I do social media for a chain of dry cleaners in the suburbs. He met my eyes. I keep thinking about what you did that day. How you just left with dignity. While we turned your pain into content. We all make choices, I said carefully. Yeah. He scraped a hand through his hair, no longer perfectly styled. I made mine. And you made yours. And yours were better. A group of Silicon Thorn employees appeared at my elbow, my team, young and eager and talented. They eyed Landon with curious hostility, clearly recognizing him from the story that had become legend in certain circles. Rachel, we're heading to the AI panel, one of them said. You coming? In a moment, I replied. They moved off, but not far. Protective, loyal, everything a team should be. Landon watched them go. They look up to you. I look out for them. There's a difference. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm starting to understand that. I could have left it there. Clean break. Lesson learned. Karma served. But something made me pause. Landon, I said, and he looked up hopefully. The dry cleaners. Are they treating you well? His face crumpled slightly. Yeah. They're good people. Boring work. But good people. Good. I pulled out a business card, not mine, but one I'd picked up earlier. This is a startup looking for content help, small company, based in Akron. They need someone who understands mistakes and second chances. He took the card with shaking hands. Rachel, I'm not doing this for you. I cut him off. I'm doing it because destroying people isn't content either, even when they deserve it. I turned to go, then stopped. One more thing. If I ever hear about you turning someone's pain into a prank again, any consequence you face won't come from me. It'll come from the dozen other people you taught to protect themselves. Understood? Understood, he whispered. I walked away, my team falling into step beside me. One of them, Sarah Walsh, whom I'd successfully recruited from Blue Nova, glanced back at Landon. Was that? Yes. And you gave him a lead? I thought about my father, working himself to death for people who forgot his name 3 weeks later. About my mother, destroyed by a system that valued personality over competence. About myself, turned into a punchline by people who couldn't see past the screen. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming the person they should have been, I said. Sarah nodded slowly. He looked different, smaller. No, I corrected. We just got bigger. The AI panel was starting as we entered the conference room. I took my seat, surrounded by my team, and thought about viral moments. How they spread, how they shaped us, how they revealed who we really were when the cameras were rolling. They'd wanted me to be their content. Instead, I'd become their consequence. And that was a story worth more than all the views in the world. The panel ended with polite applause and the usual exchange of business cards. I navigated through the crowd, my team dispersing to different sessions. When Sarah appeared at my elbow again, "There's something you should see," she said, holding up her phone. A LinkedIn post, Landon's account. I almost told her I wasn't interested, but something in her expression made me look. Today marks 6 months since I lost everything that mattered to me, or what I thought mattered. 6 months since I learned that followers aren't friends, content isn't connection, and viral moments can destroy real lives. I won't rehash the details. Those who know, know. Those who don't, be grateful. What I will say is this. I met the person I hurt today. She gave me a business card for a company that might take a chance on someone who burned every bridge he ever built. She didn't have to. I wouldn't have. To anyone reading this who thinks pranks are content, who believes humiliation equals engagement, who sees coworkers as props in your personal show, stop. Just stop. The person you're about to hurt for likes has a life, a history, a heart that breaks just like yours. The internet forgets in a week. The person you destroyed remembers forever. And sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, they'll show you a mercy you don't deserve. Do better. Be better. The views aren't worth it. No tags, no hashtags, no plea for shares or engagement. Just words, simple and true. He's changed, Sarah said softly. Maybe. I handed her phone back. Or maybe he just learned to perform sincerity instead of cruelty. Time will tell. But as I walked back to my hotel room that evening, I found myself thinking not about Landon or Blue Nova, or even the triumph of Silicon Thorn. I thought about my father's coffee mug, shattered on my kitchen floor, about my mother, who still sent cards from dead men because letting go felt like betrayal, about the 15-year-old girl I'd been, promising herself she'd never be vulnerable again. That girl had built armor out of professionalism and distance. She'd mistaken isolation for strength, silence for power. It had taken a room full of laughing faces and pointed phones to show her the truth. Armor only works if someone's trying to protect you. Otherwise, you're just alone in a metal suit, waiting for the next blow to fall. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Saw your panel on the conference live stream. Dad would be so proud. I am too. I stood at my hotel window, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline, and let myself feel it all. The hurt, the rage, the vindication, and finally, unexpectedly, something like peace. They'd turned me into content, a punchline, a viral moment designed to break. Instead, I'd broken their narrative, refused to play my assigned role, turned their weapon against them with surgical precision. But the real victory wasn't in their destruction. It was in Sarah, brave enough to speak up now, in my new team, who saw protection as strength, not weakness, in the startup that might take a chance on someone who'd learned hard lessons, even in Landon, maybe, if his change was real, if he could turn his influence toward building instead of breaking. My reflection stared back from the window, older, harder, but somehow more whole than the woman who'd walked into Blue Nova that March morning, coffee in hand, believing that competence was enough. I pulled out my phone and opened a new email to my mother. Thanks. Mom. Miss you both. See you Sunday for dinner. P.S. I broke Dad's mug, the one that said world's most dedicated daughter. But I think he'd understand. Sometimes things need to break before you realize you were always more than what was written on them. I hit send before I could overthink it, then ordered room service and settled in to review resumes for Silicon Thorn's new anti-harassment task force. We were building something better, quieter than a viral moment, slower than a trending topic, but real in a way that mattered. The next morning, I passed the startup showcase again. Landon was gone, but the business card I'd given him was tucked into a thank you note at the information desk. My name written in shaky handwriting. Inside, just 2 words, being better. I left the conference that afternoon with 17 new connections, 3 speaking invitations, and 1 hard-earned truth. The best revenge isn't served cold or hot or with viral precision. It's served by becoming the person who doesn't need revenge at all. They'd wanted to break me for content. Instead, I'd broken their worldview with dignity. Let them make a TikTok about that. I don't need them to love me. I just need them to remember me. Every time they think about turning someone else into a joke. And they do. Every single time. They remember. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, unlike content, never goes out of style. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something similar in your workplace? How did you handle it? Your stories matter too. And I'd love to hear them in the comments below.